I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.
Hello there, Price of Reason here with a series review. Over the past few months, there's been a lot of talk about Disney's new MCU show, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, leading up to its release. Some people criticized the poor CGI in the trailers. Others felt it looked like a Sex and the City type show for women in their 30s. During this time, I was mostly silent. Not because I believed that it would be a good show, but because I wanted to see it for myself before I made a more concrete judgment on it. Disney was apparently worried about what critics like me would say about She-Hulk upon its release, so they employed a clever strategy this time around. They would give a select group of Disney-friendly critics early access to 4 episodes of the show, hoping they would clap like seals and say that it's great, which of course, they did. Coupled with a special relationship that Disney has with Rotten Tomatoes, Disney made sure that She-Hulk premiered with a Sopranos-level critic score of 94, which is not fishy at all. Interestingly though, at the time of making this video, both critic and audience scores seem to be dropping and may continue to do so. But beyond all of Disney's usual slippery media tactics, do I think that this show is any good? Well, unlike the Disney-friendly critics, I was only able to watch the first episode that's available to the public, so I can only give you my honest review on that one, but please be warned, there will be spoilers in my review. Episode 1 starts with our protagonist, Jennifer Walters, attorney at law, preparing closing arguments for a trial, when suddenly a toxic male shows up and tells her that he should deliver closing arguments instead of her because he can do it better, but thankfully, Jennifer puts him in his place and he leaves. At this point, Jennifer breaks the fourth wall and goes back in time to fill us in on recent events in her life. It turns out that just a few months earlier, Jennifer was taking a road trip with her cousin, Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk, when a spaceship drove them off the road, causing their car to fall into a ditch. During the accident, Jennifer touches Bruce's blood, and then she becomes a Hulk too.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Didn't Bruce become the Hulk after being exposed to a massive amount of gamma radiation? Is one drop of Bruce's blood really going to have this effect on her? I mean, I know this is all imaginary make-believe science, but writers still have to stay true to the rules of the universe in which they're writing. Anyhow, for some reason, after Jennifer turns into a Hulk, she and Bruce separate and she finds herself in a local bar where women want to help her because they believe she was beaten up by a toxic male. Then she walks outside the bar and 3 toxic males try to assault her, but she turns into She-Hulk and scares them away. Then Bruce knocks her out and she wakes up at his secret lab in Mexico. For the rest of the episode, it's mainly Jennifer criticizing Bruce's life choices, beating him up, and showing him that she's a better Hulk than him. After realizing that being a Hulk doesn't actually change her personality, just her appearance, Jennifer decides she wants to go back home and continue being a lawyer, that she doesn't need Bruce's training and doesn't want to be a superhero at all. She then tells Bruce that men are awful, and she also tries to run Bruce over with a jeep, after which he concedes that she's the best and wishes her the best of luck. Then we're back to where the episode started. Jennifer is going to deliver her closing arguments for a case when a powerful female villain shows up in the courtroom, and with no one else to stop her, Jennifer becomes She-Hulk and knocks her out. And that's it. That's the whole episode. Now, let's start out with the good. The acting in this episode is decent. Even though in real life, actor Mark Ruffalo is kind of a douche, he's been the Hulk for years and by now, he's able to portray the character in a somewhat acceptable way. Tatiana Maslany, on the other hand, is actually more than just acceptable. I've seen her in other shows, and if anything, I think she's an underrated actress. However I may feel about the show's writing, and we'll get to that, I think that Maslany does the absolute best with the material she's given, and at times, she even manages to rise above it. Another good thing was the pacing of the episode. They wanted to give you exposition and set up the premise of the series in 30 minutes, and in that sense, they accomplished their goal. By the end of this first episode, Jennifer is a lawyer and She-Hulk, and it's all been explained. Another somewhat good thing is that the CGI that looked awful in the trailer didn't look as bad here. It still didn't necessarily look great, but not as bad. That's worth something, I suppose. Well, that's pretty much the good. Now let's talk about the bad. Without a doubt, the worst part of this first episode, and likely series, was the writing and not so subtle gender messaging. From the first minute to the last, the writers managed to make Jennifer Walters behave in a very unlikable way. She's the classic 2022 Disney female archetype. She's good at everything, she's arrogant, rude, she doesn't need any training, she's better than all the men around her. Oh, and she hates men too. Now, in my opinion, from a writing perspective, if they would have actually presented her as shy and reserved, but then after she becomes a Hulk, she becomes more confident, I think that could have been a more interesting character arc. Instead, we just get the standard agenda-based character that Disney has been feeding us recently, and that's very unfortunate. The frustrating thing is, if they didn't make her character and the show so anti-male, it could have been a fun show. I heard that the creator of the show said that she wanted to appeal to 30-year-old women, but I don't get why. Why not tone down Jennifer's insufferable behavior and make this a show that other people can enjoy too? Also, are there that many 30-year-old women watching MCU shows on Disney Plus? From what I can tell, they would probably prefer watching something else. For the past few years, Disney has done everything they could to alienate male viewers, which is odd, because when it comes to sci-fi and comic book properties, men are actually the strongest demographic. Or at least they were. There's a reason why Disney MCU viewership has consistently gone down in recent years. They keep trying to embrace audiences that don't especially care about their properties, while at the same time attacking their strongest potential demographic. There's a much bigger chance that middle-aged men that actually grew up reading these comics would actually watch this show. But if this first episode is anything to go by, they're not really being given much of an incentive. To date, every Disney Plus show premiered with its best episode, and usually it only goes downhill from there. And even those first episodes were usually pretty mediocre. Can She-Hulk defy the odds? I don't think so, but we'll just have to see. If you want me to review more episodes of She-Hulk, please let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed my review, please consider subscribing to my channel and clicking on that wonderful notification bell. Thanks for watching, thank you, and good day!
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.